At the bleak edge of the mighty Etonian Empire, a city rises from the moors, Newgate, the guardian of the northern frontier. Ruled by its noble caste of tieflings and protected by a highly trained and fiercely loyal mercenary company of hobgoblins, Newgate's unconquerable walls have stood for centuries. Recently, however, the city has become home to a swelling population of refugees from across the known world, driven to find shelter in the uncaring arms of the Etonians after being displaced by the ongoing War of the Empires, waged between the merchant wealth of the Etonians, the massive bureaucracy of the Etians, the teeming plain cities of the Menteshi, and the rebellious Seven Nations. Already victims of the horrors of war, the refugees packing the outer neighborhoods of Newgate have found themselves victims of a new pair of remorseless predators, crime and hatred. Prostitution, illegal brewing, and gambling run rampant in the sparsely policed refugee neighborhoods, and local gangs have risen to battle over the profits and vie for the favor of aristocratic sponsors within the noble families of Newgate. The human gangs have become the most relentless of all, seeking to dominate and exploit their non-human neighbors. Your party consists of recent refugees stranded in this violent place. You have banded together to protect yourselves and your families from the human onslaught. Your foes are about to discover that, although you aren't human, this sleepy Newgate town is just the place for a street-fighting man. Welcome to Dungeons & Decisions, a Displaced Beast production. As an interesting window into the character generating process, we decided to create a new campaign and to let you, the folks at home, follow along. So, without further ado, let's move on to the introductions. So, Chad.
Hi, I'm Chad. I'm from the city of Columbus, and I like alliterations.
Hi, I'm Mark. I have no fancy alliterations. Full disclosure, this whole doing a character class episode is something that I've pushed for, and we tried to come up with a novel way to do it. And thanks to Mike, we did. So kudos to Mike. And I hope you enjoy what comes next.
Hi, I'm Mike, and I make mistakes. But in my own mind, I've got a theme band running in the background.
And I'm Al, and I will be your, well, I guess MC for this evening.
And I'm going to be our cruise director?
Yes, I'm Julie. You're all screwed. And I will be acting as, again, as the forever DM for this new game that we are setting up. And again, letting you, the folks at home, witness. So the basics of the setup. You've heard the basics of the campaign world in my overly dramatic introduction. So here are the basics of character generation that we're going to be talking about. First of all, everyone's starting at first level, so everything's going to be nice and simple. The player characters can be anything non-human to play along with the prejudice theme that's going to be very important in the campaign. Well, the humans are the bad guys, again. So anything non-human are the good guys at this point, and anything from the official books or from later Unearthed Arcana is totally all right. We each decided to create 2 characters for this new world, and I also created some PCs as well, just so we kind of get a feel for what I would play if I were actually playing. And we did these with the standard stat array, for those of you who watched our first episode, or listened to our first episode, standard array of stats. This is also a monotheistic world, so anybody who is dealing with a religious character, instead of gods, we're talking about saints in this case, due to some interesting facets of this particular campaign world. So now we are going to go around the horn and talk about the characters we created. So Chad, if you'll get us started.
Sure. Welcome to Character Concept Creation with Chad. I'm Chad. Let's see if I can share my screen for the first one. And there we go. I'll leave it up for a little bit. So my goblin character, his race is goblin, and right now his name is Goblin. So very creative to go off on the beginning. With Al's introduction, I was kind of looking for a character. He was kind of like a young teen, kind of in a gang, so I was kind of thinking more of like an urchin or a thieves guild. And I thought it might be kind of fun having a character that kind of grew up in the sewers. So that kind of evolved itself into a goblin kind of character that was kind of living off the rats. And I was looking for a class, and I came across Druid, Circle of Spores. And the thing is, unlike a normal Druid where they worship like the trees and the animals, this one worships mold and spores and all the underground things. And I thought that would kind of played a nice synergy between the two kind of concepts I was coming up with. But let's go into the stats. So with the 15, 14, 13, is that right? 12, 10, 8? Yeah. I was looking at putting in the highest one into wisdom, which was a 15 because it's a druid. For the constitution, or I should say for the dexterity, it was a 14, but it gets +2 because he was a goblin for his racial class. And then we kind of go down the line with constitution of 14, charisma 12. I wanted him to actually be kind of like a lovable, friendly little goblin who's pretty much more innocent babe in the woods kind of thing than, you know, some kind of sneaky, you know, my precious kind of creature. And then, but I put 8 intelligence into him, so, you know, he basically speaks in first person, you know, goblin hungry. I looked at a couple different things that I thought kind of defined who he was. One of them being, you know, he always has food on hand, and he's always eating his food, which ties in with one of his cantrips for healing was the good berry. So, because food is always good. And then I found another little spell. It was called cantrip of primal savagery, and that, like, his teeth get bigger and his fangs, you know, and his claws get bigger, and so when he does need to fight, he just kind of wolfs out. And then when he gets into higher levels, then he can actually wolf out or turn into a rat. And I thought this would tie in kind of meeting with the other characters, as maybe he kind of lived in the sewers, and then as more and more people, refugees, kind of came into the cities, that's how he kind of got introduced into this gang as they started coming into his world. And so his kind of goal is to kind of find a tribe of where he belongs. So that was my character. And let's stop sharing. There we go.
All right. Thanks, Chad. It's my turn next. So when I was thinking of a character for this campaign, you know, and I guess maybe Al, before I get started, do you want to talk about some of your inspiration for this campaign, some of the influences?
Oh, okay. Well, one of the big influences was the movie version of Gangs of New York. That's what I have always had in mind as the primary thing. And I actually do have an entire arc planned out for this campaign as far as where it starts and where it ends. Now, it's kind of an I guess I shouldn't have called it an entire arc because it's really the beginning and end. I haven't figured out what the actual arc part over top of it, linking the two parts, is going to be yet.
So you've got an underpants gnome campaign plan.
Yes, actually, that's a good way of putting it. I've got the question marks in the middle and then profit at the end. So, yeah. Though that said, some of my other influences, I've been playing an awful lot of the video game version of Games Workshop's classic board game, Wartime. So that's the urban combat part of that is a big influence, and also the Warriors, which has been like a constant role-playing game inspiration for lots of people too. So, and there's going to be a Warriors-themed game. I know that at some point there will be a lot of call-outs to the Warriors. And I'm also thinking that a lot of the gangs are going to be themed, like the baseball gang and so forth from the Warriors. So they won't be baseball, but we'll come up with something goofy.
So when this was all described to me, as well as the specifics of the campaign that Al addressed in his intro, that my inspiration for this was immediately to think of a character that was kind of a street historian, right? That this would be a guy who was out there like learning like all the stories on the street, and also, you know, kind of a diplomatic character as well, like because he knows everybody and everything that's going on. He, you know, kind of makes a good peacemaker, and a guy that would maybe like go out and make allegiances between gangs or something like that. So that was kind of the character that I had in mind. And then I thought about some various classes that might kind of go well with that role. And Bard was what I immediately came up with, right? There may be a couple of others that might work well, you know, cleric or paladin, perhaps. But I like, you know, I like the idea of this guy being a bard, and I think it matches well with the kind of role I had for him. So after that, I had to think about what type of you know, how he's going to inspire his comrades. What type of artist is a bard? Because all bards have some art form or other that they will use for inspiration. And so, you know, based on Al's kind of ideas, I thought about, you know, a time in American history where, you know, gang life started to get eclipsed by a particular art form, kind of the hip hop culture, right? And so I decided that very heavily based on the Jeff Chang book, Can't Stop, Won't Stop. I thought of this bard being like someone who does street art. Basically, he's like he does b-boy dancing, he does graffiti, whatever. Maybe even like DJs in a way using magic, like making, you know, musical loops with a cantrip or something like that. So hopefully this, you know, is not too and doesn't take me too far into the depths of cultural appropriation, but I think I have enough good taste to kind of to make it happen without being completely exploitive. So anyway, so that's my idea, right? So the character that I come up with, and I'm going to share my screen here. All right, so this is Quintilius Quarterflash, also known as Q. And I made him a half-elf because I thought it was a good match, both for the class and also kind of his role as a diplomat. In the player's handbook, they talk about half-elves being kind of natural peacemakers and diplomats, and so I thought that was a good match. So as far as my attributes, I went for high charisma and high dexterity. I also considered him to be skillful and you know, have that kind of bright spark of creativity. So I invested in intelligence. I'm not sure if that was the right choice, considering it meant a 10 in Constitution. So I'm definitely going to have to keep. You know, Quintilius, he's not a fighter, right? He's a peacemaker, so he's going to be dodging arrows and running to the back, I think, a lot. So yeah, so you can see kind of in the personality traits and the ideals and bonds, you know, that kind of expresses the idea that I was going for. And then let's see, let me think of some other choices that I made here. Oh yeah, his background, I chose the guild artisan, which I wanted him to be, you know, an artist, and I thought of him maybe as a painter. So he probably, you know, paints some tags and some graffiti, or maybe he uses cantrips to do that too. And then the other things that I picked were basically my spells, and you can see that I invested in some illusion stuff for my cantrips, minor illusion and prestidigitation. And then spells, I kind of went, I didn't want this guy to be a damage dealer. I wanted him to be the kind of guy who would use like a non-lethal way of taking out an opponent, which is why I thought of Tasha's Hideous Laughter as a good spell. And it's got some flavor to it too. And then the rest of the stuff I just kind of picked because I think they would work well for his kind of diplomatic efforts. So that is Q. His name is kind of both a nod to Quincy Jones and Grandmaster Flash of Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. Okay, so that's my first guy. Mike, do you want to go next?
Sure. I think you need to stop sharing your screen.
I will stop sharing my screen.
All right. So as I was thinking about this, again, thinking about refugees, non-humans. So first thing I kind of came up with was, okay, what's going to be the backstory? Why is my character going to be a refugee? And that kind of dovetailed with trying to think of something I haven't played before. And I don't think I've ever played an elf character before, or if I did, it was a one-off. So decided I want to play an elf. And then I was thinking, okay, how would an elf be in an urban environment as a refugee? I'm thinking, okay, some kind of succession wars, noble, on the losing side, gets outcast. So that was kind of the first level of what I was thinking. And then, okay, now I'm in an urban environment. Okay, I'm clearly dead set on revenge for whatever bad things happened to my family and loved ones. So how am I going to get revenge? Well, okay, I'm going to kill a lot of people. So I thought, okay, how about a rogue type, and maybe subclass as an assassin later on. So that started the kind of the nucleus. And then this weekend I was watching reaction videos, and Careless Whisper by the band Wham came up, and in particular, I saw this particular screenshot, and it just everything kind of clicked for me. Can you guys see that?
Oh yeah.
So I'm thinking, okay, real nice, pretty boy with a real dark underlayer. So that image kind of for me set the rest of the tone for how I was going to create my character. So I decided that, sharing my character screen here, that I was going to name my character Careless Whisper. Careless as in fearless, not fearing consequences. Whisper as in assassin, undetected. So with that, I decided that he was going to be largely stealth, dexterity based. So I put my highest stat in dexterity with a racial modifier, gave me a couple of extra points, bringing up my dex to 17. I wanted to potentially also maybe branch him out into some spell casting, so made my second highest intelligence, which I think I also got a racial bonus for. Strength was not going to be his forte, so I put my lowest stat in that. Likewise for con. Charisma definitely needed my part of my backstory. I was going to have him be a gigolo, so definitely need a decent charisma for that. Again, the pretty boy. And then wisdom 12, because I didn't want him to be a complete, idiot. He's got to have, if you're going to be, you want to be fearless, but you don't want to be dead. So decided that at least a decent wisdom was necessary. Chose for my main hand weapon, dagger or rapier, along with a short bow for distance combat. Skills decided again focus largely on dexterity-based and charisma-based skills. So things like acrobatics, deception, intimidation, survival. Stealth. Things that are going to benefit me in trying to both confuse the enemy as well as keep me alive. And then for my, I get one cantrip right now, so I picked Green Flame Blade, which is an add-on to your melee attack that gives you a little bonus to damage and scales as you level. So that was my thoughts in putting together that character. So with that, I'll turn it over to Al.
Hang on, Mike. So a couple things quick.
Yeah.
So like I know you talked about him being an assassin, but he seems like really set up well to be an arcane
Yeah,
trickster as
arcane
well.
trickster. Yeah. So
Yeah, I
so
could see that
mhm,
really working out for him too with the high intelligence and already having one cantrip, right?
mhm,
Um, the other thing is that you could see I like this idea, your concept, because you could see it playing out in a number of different other classes, right? You could
mhm,
see this guy just as well being a ranger, right? Just very efficient at killing, other people, or like an Oath of Conquest paladin, or maybe just
mhm.
like a straight up like brutish fighter or barbarian. I mean, an elf barbarian maybe be a little weird, but
Yeah, but I
they
really
make
like
it
the
work.
idea of the complete contrast between, his public persona, which is going to be just this complete, playboy, servile type, and then just, the Tootsie Roll center of the Tootsie Pop,
Right.
just being this contract assassin who's, combing for leads on who is behind his family's overthrow. So
Yeah.
I kind of like that dichotomy.
Yeah, it's cool. I think it seemed like Rogue was a good path to go, but it's cool that you came up with something that I think could work in a lot of different
Mhm.
areas. I mean,
Yeah.
you
So
could be a bard too.
yeah, and ultimately, I just really liked the name. You know.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, Al. Go ahead.
No problem. All right, so the first of my characters is Gunter Cavernborn. And this was born out of my penchant for playing dwarves and the fact that I love grudge holding dwarves in particular. So we decided that it would be awesome if I combined the dwarf with the grudge holding class, which is the Oath of Vengeance Paladin, which is based, incidentally, because I have to do this every episode, based on the Avenger from 4th edition D&D. So that said, so Gunter, I decided to go with a Duergar this time, and he is a paladin. I'm planning on going into the Oath of Vengeance when I actually pick such a thing. I decided his background would be acolyte. He is a priest who has been displaced, again, like all the other characters. So went with strength as the high stat, as is generally a good idea with a paladin. Charisma is next, and then everything else follows in after that. I decided to lowball intelligence in this case because I don't think that quick thinking is really going to be this character's forte. For skills, went with athletics, insight, intimidation, and religion. The idea being, of course, intimidation is probably going to be his most used skill because, well, you got to make incredibly elaborate threats while you are trying to wreak vengeance on people. So, unlike everybody's characters so far, he's a heavy as far as armor class is concerned. AC 18 starting off, but of course, because he's a dwarf, speed 25. So the fight's probably going to happen without him most of the time anyway. So, as far as personality traits went, never let go of a grudge, and the guilty must be punished, playing into the class. I'm trying to pay off an old debt I owe to a generous benefactor. I haven't quite figured that one out yet. And then I'm incredibly slow to trust, and I blow up at the slightest insult. So powder keg time. As far as everything else, got a good range of languages for him. Basic equipment for the classes, and I'm ready to go. I've got the basics of the Paladin's starting abilities over here, combined with what will be awesome at 3rd level, because at that point I get to use Enlarge and ruin everybody's day with that. And I went with lawful neutral because I figured he would be not necessarily a follower of the written law, but he will definitely have a code of conduct that he follows and will expect other people to follow it too. So he's kind of going in the tiny direction, I fear, to a certain extent, but he also likes cracking heads, so there's that. So at least he'll get along with the other NPCs on that ground. All right, and let me stop sharing here, and Chad, back to you.
All right, we're going to do the second half of the character creation, or as I like to say, character concept creation continued with Chad.
Concomitantly.
Intermittently. All right, and then let's do the sharing the full screen. View. All right, as you can see by the name, it's Golden Child. I was looking at I was trying to think of other kind of what do you call backgrounds for something, so for more of the younger preteen kind of thing, and Acolyte was one of the ones that kind of stuck in my memory. And I was thinking of kind of the Golden Child back in probably the 80s with Eddie Murphy, and I wanted somebody who maybe not as wise as that Silent Child, but thinks he's this wise, benevolent being, and hence that's why his wisdom and intelligence are really low, but his charisma is like straight up with 17. His class, or I should say his race, was Azamar, which is kind of like these holy celestial beings. So he's got like this golden skin and these wings that don't quite work well yet until I think they get higher level. And his whole thing is that he wants everyone to get along, they work together and make everything great. And he's really confused by everyone being so cynical and down and kind of just against the world. So as one of his traits, I kind of have him seen as being very optimistic, very gullible, and that, you know, if people say, "Oh, give me, you know, some money and I'll go help the poor," he'll give all the money, you know, to help them. And with Al's talking about kind of the past of the church being more of the saints, I thought maybe he had one of these priests that kind of raised him as an acolyte when he was born, and kind of force fed him into the stuff that you're the divine, you're the golden child that's going to save everyone. And then he disappeared. He was declared heretic by the church, and now he's trying to figure out his way in the world, which is kind of how he kind of got tied in with the rest of the group and the gang. Other things I looked at, like I said, I wanted kind of the wisdom and intelligence not very high, so that he's kind of this gullible person. And then the dexterity, it's always great to have a high armor class. And then the class I picked was a sorcerer with the divine. So once again, he's kind of born with this innate power. So once again, he thinks it's godly. And all his spells and cantrips all have to do with healing people or protecting them or blessing them. So I can see him helping a lot in a fight as being a support character. So that's kind of where I was going with this guy. So thanks.
Yeah, I think that, once again, this is a concept that you could have applied in a number of different class areas, right? I mean, he could have been a paladin for sure, or maybe even, a monk of some sort.
I was envisioning a monk earlier, but that's my character I just played last time. And I almost kind of wanted him not to be effective in combat a little bit, and that he stands and takes everybody. He's more of a support thing. So no, he's a really solid support character. It's interesting too that you made a sorcerer cleric. I have the best of both worlds, and a character I usually don't use much with spell casting, so now I have to look at all the spells every level.
So you min-maxed the best of both worlds, Chad.
Well, more of the in the casting, I guess. I don't know enough about casting.
Yeah, to be fair, his spell selection is very, very, very tipped in one direction there. He definitely went with a lot of cleric stuff. So but you can also change those spells every level. So
right, maybe as he gets more older and cynical, they become fireball and magic.
Right, exactly. So forget about this. Blow you all up. Okay, so
fun evolution to watch.
So once again, nice work, Chad. So for my second character, so I really wanted like a strong magic character for my second character, primary caster, and I was definitely thinking of a wizard, um, and basically because the concept of the character, I saw him as being this kind of obsessive magical collector. I really thought of him as a scavenger, right? He's like out there. Here we are in this very kind of diverse cultural environment with all these different traditions of magic kind of coming together in this, immigrant melting pot. And my guy is out there trying to, get his hands on as much of it as he possibly can, right? So yeah, so the direction that I thought of was wizard. I think it matches the concept, but I think I also like wizard better than some of the other spell casting classes, in terms of the arcane classes anyway. I think it has a little more versatility than the sorcerer and the warlock, and I'm definitely drawn to that aspect as a player. So wizard. You probably could have also been an artificer, but I just don't know much about the 13th class. So I went with something I'm a little more comfortable and familiar with. So then I wanted him to be either a hobgoblin or a tiefling, because based on Al's campaign description, I wanted him to be a member of the elite, either kind of the noble elite or the military elite, definitely a cut above, and then kind of fallen right to the been cast out of the kind of the promised land. So a really solid reject character. So I decided to go with the hobgoblin because the idea of kind of the more working class reject, appealed to me more than the fancy noble reject. So my guy is really like this this character who very strongly does not get along with other people of any race, and is really very kind of self-serving and obsessed with accumulating magic. So let me share my screen.
Did you figure out why you had a falling out?
I think it's kind of more of a willing departure. I mean, the more I thought about it, I think he was kind of like, he's this hobgoblin. He goes to like hobgoblin military wizard school or whatever. Hobgoblins have a very kind of militant spellcaster tradition, right? And he's just like, okay, well, I know magic now. I don't really need the military. And so he's, there's like self-sabotage that occurs basically. He's kind of one of those people that just can't help but be a jerk, right? He's just like, even when he knows it's self-defeating, he can't help it. So here he is. Here's Vic the Vulture, my hobgoblin wizard. I gave him the sage background because I figured, he would be studying magic in Hobgoblin Battle Wizard School. And I made him, I put intelligence and constitution as my highest scores. One of the nice things about like thinking of either a tiefling wizard or a hobgoblin wizard is they both really make good wizards. I mean, it was a good fit, right, for the campaign world and my goals there. So Vic gets a racial bonus from being a hobgoblin in constitution and intelligence, which is great. So he's got the high constitution and intelligence, and then charisma, of course, as I said, is his lowest stat. He's just an unlikable guy. As you can see in my my comments up here, he's defensive and crabby, self-centered, generally unpleasant, very ambitious, and his kind of explanation for being associated with a gang is he needs someone to protect him while he goes around and scavenging for magic, and in return he uses his magic to those folks' benefit. So it's a very transactional relationship. Okay, so one of the cool things about hobgoblins is they start with proficiency in 2 martial weapons.
A mall.
So I gave Vic a Maul, right? Because I think that he would take like the most kind of intimidating weapon he could think of, because he wants people to back off. Plus, it's functional too, right? I mean, you can use a maul to like break up stone or whatever if you're trying to excavate, magical treasure from a building or whatever. So, figured Vic would see the utility of the maul. I took longbow as my other because it seemed like the most practical missile weapon that he could possibly have. And then when it came to my skills, and I just realized I didn't talk about this with my other character, but I just kind of went with a standard. He gets the Arcana and History from his background, and then Insight and Investigation seemed like the most useful skills for a scavenger. Let's see. And then as far as spells go, you can see I went with Mage Hand, True Strike, and Firebolt. Figured, the Mage Hand would definitely be the kind of utility spell that Vic would appreciate. And then because of his kind of militant background, I thought that he would probably have these other two attack spells. And then for his, the starting spells in the spell book, I got Find Familiar, which of course is fantastic, right? If you can ever have the opportunity to get Find Familiar, whether you are a wizard or you want to get it through, maybe a feat, or through, being a ritual caster, like being a warlock with the Book of Shadows, invocation. There's other ways to get it other than being a wizard, and if you can do it, then I highly recommend it, because having a familiar is not only great role-playing flavor, but a familiar just has boundless uses, from giving you the help action in combat, for all you practical min-maxers out there, to just to doing scouting, to being a guardian, a sentry of sorts. It's just, familiars are awesome. So so Vic's familiar is Sniffles the Rat, which I realized after seeing Chad's character that Sniffles is probably going to be in jeopardy through most of it.
I like all rats.
And then I went with kind of a mix of kind of, detection and divination magic. You can see I picked Detect Magic and Identify, which were spells that obviously a magical scavenger is going to have. And then a little bit of attack. Once again, Tasha's Hideous Laughter. Just, couldn't resist that. And Chromatic Orb, which is, I think, one of the better, first level attack spells, because you're able to
flexible.
Yeah, to make it into different types of energy damage. And combined with True Strike, I think it would be really effective. So, okay, so that is, let's see if there's anything else to say. Oh yeah, so I didn't talk about this with Quintilius, and let me just quickly say that I could see Q being a lore bard pretty much. I think some of the other, like subclasses would work with him, but I feel like lore is really where he's headed. And the same thing with Vic. I see him going in one of two directions, either kind of embracing his training, right, and doing the battle magic school, or going to divination because of all of the detection magic and using his focus on finding things as a scavenger. So I could see him going in either direction. Basically, I think I'd play him for a little while and see how the campaign is going and where I'd want to go. But diviners are extremely powerful. They have this ability that's almost kind of game bending, so that is very tempting. Okay, so that's all I have to say about Vic. Mike, do you want to talk about your next character?
Yeah, so I owe credit to Mark, because as we were kind of discussing the broad strokes of the various characters, with Chad's Golden Child character, and the fact that both Mark and Chad were creating caster types, I thought it would be good to have someone who could be a little bit more melee. and could accompany the golden child as a protector. But as we've discussed in previous episodes, I'm not necessarily a play with the party type player. So of course, I'm not going to just be, attending Chad's character as some kind of servant type. So I was thinking of how would this play out? So let me bring my character sheet up here, decided to create a character called Brother Shameless, who is a monk. So again, thinking about refugees, okay, he's going to be a displaced person. I decided for the background, he was going to be the Fearbold race, which is a giant type who, lives deep in the mountains of the woods. And because we have the background of war between nations, figured that he got displaced because his forest got burnt down by, engaging forces. So of course he has a rampant animus against humanity. And would have at a young age been found and taken care of by monks. So he has an obligation as part of that organization, but is terribly despondent about what's happened to his own family. So is both a melee type, likes to thump things, and likes to drink a lot. So that opens up the opportunity later on to do a drunken master type thing. And the hook with Chad and the rest of the company is he's been ordered for reasons that are unbeknownst to him by his abbot to accompany the golden child, and he's very unhappy about it. So to that end, again, as a melee type and as a monk, so as a monk, I wanted to put my highest stat in wisdom, closely followed by dexterity, because for a monk, as opposed to strength, dexterity actually plays a larger role in combat. But then my con and strength fall as my third two stats, and then intelligence as the fifth, and then obviously, because I don't give a damn about what anybody thinks about me, charisma is my bottom score. So for melee weapons, quarterstaff, two-handed, or alternatively unarmed strike. I've got darts for ranged combat. The monk doesn't get a lot of skills to begin with, but I decided to pick acrobatics, survival because he lived outdoors for so long, stealth, again, because of the high dexterity. So I get a couple of spell-like abilities: detect magic, disguise self. So again, those are good for when you're doing a protection type detail. But again, Mark kind of put me on the road to thinking about a monk. So tip of the cap to Mark. And again, that kind of shows how everyone kind of riffs off of one another. And again, it wasn't necessarily a strong character collaboration, but knowing kind of the direction that others were going, we can, kind of play off of that and get some kind of, party balance. Again, like I said, for me, it's going to be the melee, and unusually I'm actually going to be at the forefront, but that's okay because I'm crusty and want to beat a lot of things up. So it fits well with the character. So with that, questions for me or on to Al?
I think
I know. Brilliant.
Oh.
Covered it all, Mike. All right, Al.
All right. All right, so my last character, we decided to, we had talked about in our planning session about how much we like the lizard man, or specifically lizard folk, to get away from assuming all lizard folk are male. And I decided that I was going to take up that particular challenge and do a lizard folk. And I also decided that I was also going to do the poor sister of all of D&D, and I decided to do the Beastmaster Ranger, which we're not there yet, but I'm gonna tackle it.
Oh no.
It's like Alice tried to cause us pain.
All right,
Or
so
invented Beastmaster Ranger.
Sharkashik, who goes by the nickname Shark, is a first level ranger.
You know I'm going to be calling you Sharknado the whole campaign.
That's great. I love Sharknado in a terrible, awful way.
Little name, Mr. Hick.
So I went with the Outlander background. He's an outdoorsman all the way through. Again, lizard folk and neutral alignment, just because that always seems to go along with the lizard folk perspective. They're a little weird and a little alien and always kind of watching from the outside. So for stats, strength, I decided to go with a more melee based ranger. So strength is going to be my big combat stat. I went with Constitution being a high stat too, since the lizard folk do get a bonus to that. Dex is all right. Intelligence, not so much. And charisma being the dumb stat in this case. He's strange and alien and doesn't get along with others. So let's see. For skills, he's got a pile of skills. That's another one of the advantages of the lizard folk. You get 2 skills off the outdoorsy list. So I went with animal handling, athletics, insight, nature, perception, stealth, and survival. So I've got pretty much the whole ranger range of skills. Then as far as personality traits, I stole one from the Outlander list. So I have a lesson for every situation drawn from observing nature. So I'm going to be making a lot of bad comparisons, and then lots of analogies. Then I also stare at other sentient beings way too long for their comfort because I'm thinking about eating them. Then glory as the ideal, again going that Klingon route. Then for bonds, my family, clan, or tribe is the most important thing. And of course, the adventuring party will eventually be my new clan if I don't eat them. Yeah. And then I decided that he would have a bit of a weakness for the booze and other things. So he's got a problem with drink. So we've got 2 drunkards in the group now, which should be fun.
So he's like this drunk, basically this drunken carnivorous Marlon Perkins.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it. So went with spear as the main weapon and longbow as a backup. Let's see, went with the panpipes for his musical instrument, just because I don't know, I thought the idea of a Zamfir.
Oh, hey, my monk took the panpipe, so we can jam together.
That's right. It'd be a Zamfir
Nice.
Zamfir Zam session. All right.
I'm thinking like a Jethro Tull, like just go off on the wind instrument.
Yeah. Or like a Ron Burgundy jazz flute kind of thing. All right. So as far as abilities, I've got, of course, all of the lizard folks' totally awesome abilities. In particular, Cunning Artisan is great role-playing fodder. You make a tool or weapon or piece of armor out of a fallen foe, and that's just great. That's awesome. So that said, Hungry Jaws, my ability to take a bite out of somebody and heal a little bit from it. And then for the ranger, now for those of you playing along at home who have not had the experience of what's wrong with the ranger yet, Wizard's kind of goofed. with the original design of the Ranger. It's widely regarded by D&D players as the weakest class, and it is very specifically, it's not the entire Ranger that's the problem, it's the Beastmaster. The Beastmaster was just a poor design right from the beginning, and the first attempts to fix it, they haven't gone terribly well. So the most recent attempt to fix the Ranger and to make the Ranger a little less specific to a particular physical environment in the game was made by Unearthed Arcana. They came out with a list of alternate class features. So I decided to give those a try because I really like the Ranger alternate abilities. So in place of the favored enemy ability, I took favored foe, which, again, for those of you who played 4th edition, you might remember that the Ranger got a Hunter's Mark ability in 4th edition, and this has been carried over into 5th. And with favored foe, you get Hunter's Mark as a class ability right at 1st level. I can't cast regular spells yet, but I can cast Hunter's Mark, which is nice. And then the other issue is the Deft Explorer class feature replaced, I can't remember what it's called, but it's pretty much an environmental terrain ability. And the replacement gives you a choice of 3 different options. You can get additional skills, and there's I can't remember what the other one is, but I went with roving, and the roving feature attached to that alternate class ability, it increases your movement speed, which is why my movement speed is 35 rather than 30. And it also gives you a climb speed and gives you a swim speed. Now, the swim speed is not as cool because I'm a lizard folk. I already get swimming. But I get a climb speed, which means I don't have to make climb rolls. I just climb. And that's awesome. That's one of the features that makes the tabaxi so interesting too. Again, that automatic climb. It can be used and exploited in a wide variety of terrible ways. And then as far as equipment, I just went with basic explorer's pack, spear, dagger, shield. For armor, I'm relying a lot on the lizard folk's natural armor. Combine that with a shield, and there you go, AC 16, which isn't bad. All right, and I think that is it for Shark. So, Mark, let me pass things back over to you.
Well, before we get into the next bit, once again, let us sing the praises of the lizard folk.
Woo!
So Al could have succeeded as a lizard folk in so many other classes as well. That bonus to Constitution and Wisdom and all of those crazy awesome supporting abilities. Just, I mean, a lizard folk would make a great rogue, a great druid. Succeed in so many classes. It's awesome. Okay, but enough praise for the lizard folk.
The lizard folk.
So you can see, we only made 8 characters here, so we left out a few classes that didn't get picked, and those are the sorcerer, the fighter.
Oh, I did the sorcerer. It's just the
I'm sorry, the warlock.
Yeah.
The warlock and the fighter and the barbarian. And what else am I? Oh, the cleric.
Yeah. And the artificer, but you kind of mentioned that one.
Yeah, a little bit. So those classes, I think, could have been maybe utilized in some of these character ideas. I mean, it's very possible that Chad, for instance, with Goblin, he could have gone, more of a cleric, maybe having him, kind of worship some sewer deity, right?
Sewer urchin.
Cthulhu of the sewers.
Right? Or Al, if he didn't want to skew too heavily in the direction that we knew he was going to skew anyway, that he could have maybe gone with a fighter for his Duragard. He could, hold grudges just as easily. He just wouldn't get class features that support it. And so forth. There's I mentioned when I was talking about Vic, how he would probably make a good artificer as well. Someone specifically looking for devices and creating devices out of magic that he found. The Warlock, I don't know if any of our concepts really fit too well in the Warlock class.
You could do the Golden Child as a Warlock. It would just be
like a celestial.
It'd be kind of warped.
Yeah. And with the way that Chad is role playing him, I don't know if that would really work.
The Hex Warlock, the Hexblade. I mean, that could be almost any kind of fighter. Again,
that's true. The Hexblade would work, I think, particularly well with Careless Whisper. I think.
Yeah, it's just I've already got a character in another campaign that's already doing the Hexblade.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I like that you went with a rogue, Mike. I think that you haven't played a rogue yet.
Nope.
In our 5th edition gaming, and I think the class will suit you quite well.
Yep.
Just remember to always use your bonus action.
Yes, always.
Well, actually, I was thinking about that in the context
always be bonusing,
because I wanted my cantrip to be instantaneous. So there were other cantrips that I thought would actually fit the character concept a little better, but they would require a full action. So as opposed to the Green Flame Blade that is an instantaneous. So
and goes.
Or you can combine it with your melee action.
Yeah, and I think rounding it all out, I think the Barbarian maybe could have fit. I mean, Al, you might have gone. You probably could have gone with a raging, angry Barbarian, and Mike's monk, I guess, could have been.
Yeah, I was gonna say it could have totally been a Barbarian.
Yeah. So
I've never played a monk before, so I was like, let's do a monk.
Barbarians, I think, are classes that are just kind of. I mean, it especially when you're first kind of learning to play, I think it's a fun class because you just kind of pull the trigger and let loose, right? And just go into a rage and off you go. So that's always a good time. So yeah, I think that covers all of those classes.
Well, a note about the cleric, though, because my campaign world has a very strong religious hierarchy in it, it's actually better that all of the religious characters in the group they're all the weird outsidery religious characters, that either the accidental ones or the more violent ones, or they're the misfit toys of the religious world, which of course the established hierarchy can look down on and harass even more. So that fits really nicely with the outsiders nature of the game. So
yeah, I mean, even the Golden Child, who has these kind of specific divine powers. I mean, like, that doesn't necessarily, you don't necessarily need to specify where that comes from, when you are the divine soul cleric,
right?
I mean, divine soul sorcerer. So
isn't the mechanic you don't actually get spells from your deity at low level anyway? So
that was I think it was 2nd edition where they talked about it. First or 2nd edition. I've always liked the idea that clerics could get cleric spells from just their own fervent belief in something, but yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, so he doesn't even have to establish where that. I mean, it could be some kind of mystery that's.
Yeah, I was gonna say that could be part of a character. You're on a journey to find out, what the source of your faith powers are. That could be kind of a cool.
I have faith in myself, and that's all the power I need.
So you're a humanist.
Yeah, there you go.
We are the ones that we are waiting for.
Yes.
It's not going to be stretch role play wise for you, Chad.
Well, those pithy little sayings like, I saw many ants take down a big beetle. So together,
I think if you start cribbing from Tony Robbins,
Right.
motivation speeches,
right, I'll see omens in anything when we go about our business.
So one of the so to get us back on track here, one of the things that I thought would be pretty cool is if we looked at this group of 8 characters that we have created now,
Yeah.
we just did a couple episodes. We talked about party composition and putting a group together. So I was thinking it might be fun to make 2 sample parties out of this group of 8 characters, I think my iteration would be, in one group we would have the Golden Child and Q, and Brother Shameless,
Right.
and probably,
I think either of those would work.
yeah, I think I'd probably go with the Durgar just because then the everyone else in the other party would be stealthy.
Oh yeah, and I was thinking the lizard folk would be fun with Goblin, because Goblin would probably look up to him as oh, this is what I'll grow up into.
That's perfect.
Is the first, well, we got 2 fighters, 2 casters in the first group, kind of. And the second would be kind of the same thing. You got the bard and the thief with the 2 fighters. Yeah, Goblin's nice.
No, it would be the paladin, the bard, the sorcerer, and the monk in one group, right?
Yeah.
And then it would be the wizard, the druid, the ranger, and the rogue in the other group.
Yeah. Yeah.
that's going to be a fun party.
Yeah, I mean they're both because like the one group, I think with the exception of Al's Durgar character, who's kind of like the foil in that group. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? He's the others will be all be into the kind of being a more kind of diplomatic do-gooder group, where the other group is definitely a somewhat amoral and kind of shady.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we
And,
could have the light side and the dark side parties.
But there's other directions that you could go in too. I mean, you could try to formulate kind of the 2 parties that kind of stand up the best kind of tactically, right? You could kind of go in that direction too. I don't know. I'm curious as to what you guys would do.
Well, I think the rogue could go in any direction, because if he wants to go more melee, he could do that. If he wants to do more stealth, could do that. Hard and soft power. So I think he could go. I think he probably can blend in with any group, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one division I was thinking about blending in, because there's some that look like humans, like the Aasimar, and I think a lot of our characters had the disguise spell.
Mhm.
So if we wanted to do one mission where we're infiltrating, maybe we look at those characters.
Yeah. Shameless has disguise self,
Yep.
which is one of the nice little.
Well, and I
benefits
think
of
I've
Fear
got
Hulk.
you said Al, I had a racial ability where I can change my size. So although he's a giant class, can definitely go either way.
I did like the Goblin because he acts as both frontline and backline, depending on, he's got some spells and some attacks.
Yeah,
the
druids.
druid is nice.
Druids are awesome. Yeah. I mean, because of wild shape, you can essentially be a tank as a druid too, if you want to. Every time you change into an animal, you're basically giving
shape of a tree.
extra hit points, and druids, especially the wild shape circle, the circle of the moon, they make fantastic combatants.
Yeah, they start at a crit level higher. I think it's at second level they pretty much can be like a rat, and the third level they can be a giant rat. It's not till 4th that you can kind of turn into a giant alligator in the sewer.
It occurs to me, the one thing I didn't think about, but given the environment, I didn't even think about, I don't even know if Al would let me do it, playing an undead.
There are a few options for undead characters now.
Revenants, aren't there?
There's the Revenant. Well, actually, I don't remember. I think the Revenants got developed for 5th edition too.
Yeah, I would
They were
totally
definitely
play.
before.
I would totally play a lich who like somehow got blasted back to first level and just has this complete megalomaniac personality and speaks of himself in the third person.
And where would your Sacred Heart hiding place be? Would it be like as a first level character, like a little locket around your? Ooh, that's fine.
I'd probably have it be like a little My Little Pony doll. That,
A backpack.
literally, it got see. This is to be the dichotomy. It got found by some girl in the magical graveyard, and you know, and so I'm forced to like go around with this 3-year-old human all the time.
That would be fun. She'd be holding your hand and you lead her around.
Anyway, woulda, shoulda, coulda.
There was, I don't know if it was a druid or some class, maybe a ranger that was kind of undead, or it seemed like he was undead, and he didn't work well with humans, but he like would talk to the dead people. Do you remember that one, Al?
I don't remember off the top of my head. There is a Unearthed Arcana did a rogue subclass that was a rogue who had been killed and had come back. So that would be a possibility too. And again, there have been multiple attempts in previous editions to try to create undead characters as a balanced thing. So I think we could probably pull it off.
Well, if we make up a third character.
Or if one of your guys gets killed, you can always do the undead thing right there.
Imagine that. Well, and that actually, but that does bring up a good point. One of the things that we were talking about earlier on was how sometimes it is a good idea to roll up multiple characters at the beginning of a campaign. There's numerous advantages to it. I mean, you can get kind of maybe tired of playing the one character and you want to do something else. You can do kind of what we were just talking about and create these two kind of fundamentally different groups that kind of engage in different types of activities. But you can also have insurance in case, one of your characters gets killed. And there are actual numerous campaigns. We were talking about Ravenloft and Dark Sun, both introduced in the 2nd edition of D&D, that encouraged you to do this because it was supposed to be kind of a high fatality campaign setting, and they just didn't want to slow down the game with someone having to roll up a new character.
In Dark Sun, there was also a mechanic for leveling your characters too. When you had a character pool, and when one of your characters would go up in level, you could pick one of your other characters to go up as well. This is back in the days before like milestone experience and stuff like that. Oh, another thing that I like doing a big pool of characters. I haven't really had a chance to do it yet, but it's an idea that I've been kicking around for a while. At some point, I want to do a true ensemble game where we create a bunch of characters at the beginning, but nobody owns them.
Ooh, that sounds cool.
What would happen then is you pretty much create your characters as a group. So you've got your cast that you create at the beginning. And then at the beginning of every session, somebody plays somebody in the cast to play. Yeah, and to do that, you have to have characters who are really distinctive and are easy enough. Like everyone can do a bad Southern accent, for example, or something like that, where you can create a character hook that everybody can play. But again, I haven't quite gotten around to that yet. I wanted to do that with my college group right now, but they're a little inexperienced, so they kind of need to get attached to their characters in the more old-fashioned way. And at some point, we'll do that. We'll do the ensemble.
I did a game once with another guy, and we took turns being DM for like a stretch of adventures, and we played the same character, right? So
nice.
So you know, when I was DMing, he would play the character, and when we tried very hard not to show favoritism to that character, but there's definitely some that bled through, I think, despite our best efforts. But
Well,
yeah, that was really fun to see someone else, because I was the one who started, you know, with the character. I created him, and you know, the other DM just kind of, you know, needed a break from DMing, so I was like, okay, I'll step in, and you know, you can just play my necromancer. And it was interesting to see, you know, someone else interpret your character. I have to say that Lee did a fantastic job. You definitely stayed true to the spirit. But he became this kind of amalgam of both of our role playing, right? Kind of Lee played him a particular way, and I would take things that Lee did that I liked and apply them when I was playing. You know, it was really cool. And I'd love to see, you know, kind of what you described as kind of further application of that, so that all of these characters become the amalgamation of our group role playing. They probably all become like the same character.
I'd probably do it. Probably. I'd probably try doing it.
Crazy, power hungry, utilitarian battle guy.
I use my harpoon gun.
I want to do it with an easier game system than D&D though. So the learning curve for the characters isn't quite as high. I might do it with like in the Index Card RPG, or there's a couple hacks for Dungeon World that are really nice. They're really stripped down and really kind of fun. There's one that's based on Warhammer, that Warhammer Fantasy, the Streets of Marienburg, which is like a fan hack that was done, which is exquisite. It looks really good and super easy.
So Al, why don't you go ahead and tell everyone about what we're going to do in the next episode, because it is the companion episode to this one.
So next time on Dungeons and Decisions, we are going to cover our role playing of these characters. So what are we going to do to actually bring these characters to life? And what kind of conflicts are we thinking of within the group? Who might get along and who might not, as far as our characters go, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, and you know, we got a little bit of a hint of what these characters are like in this episode, but in the next one, we're really going to try to expand upon those ideas and talk about specific things that we would do with those characters, like maybe involving their abilities or their appearance, or other ways that we might bring these characters to life, and hopefully kind of give you inspiration on how to do the same in your game. And you know, who knows where we're going to go with this. After 2 episodes with these characters, Al may kind of Miyagi us into actually playing a game with these guys, which I think was his intention all along. But the only way to find out is to keep tuning in. So we'll see you next time on Dungeons and Decisions.
But
Bye.